You have a Delonghi Magnifica S, but your coffee lacks flavor, body, or that famous crema. Don't throw your machine away. A simple adjustment could change everything. The problem rarely comes from the machine itself, but rather from its settings. Hi, my name is Colin and you're on Cafe Lista, the independent channel where we talk about coffee, machine reviews, and especially here, how to get the best coffee possible at home. Today, I'm going to show you how to turn your Delonghi Magnifica from a basic coffee machine to a true ally for your morning ritual. I know that adjusting a machine can seem intimidating, especially when you don't have reference point. But I will show you step by step how to do it. And trust me, the difference between a coffee with default settings and a well-calibrated espresso is like night and day. So before we start changing everything, we need to know where we're starting from. So I suggest pulling an espresso with your current settings to see where you're at. So that's what I'm doing right now. There, I set the grinder to 5, which is often the default settings. And look here what happens. The extraction is way too fast, just a few seconds. The coffee is light, almost transparent. The coffee is quite light. In the mouth, it's rather bland, with an unpleasant acidity and a lack of crema. So that's typical of an under-extracted coffee. And if your espresso looks like that, don't worry, that's exactly why we're here. But before diving into the settings, there are a few important points to understand. First, the goal with the Magnifica S is above all to make a good espresso. That's the foundation. Whether you prefer a lungo or a cappuccino or a different kind of drinks, it all starts with a good espresso. So we are going to base our adjustments on the espresso extraction principle. Even though we'll have to make some tweaks because this is here an automatic coffee machine, not a traditional espresso machine. Second, and this may be the most important point, your setting will depend primarily on the coffee you use. So even with the best settings in the world, low quality coffee will give you bad espresso. So I recommend investing in a good coffee bean, a specialty coffee. It will make all the difference. But also remember, and that's why you're here, even with the best specialty coffee, for example, if the settings of your machine are off, your espresso will not taste really good. And third, the grinder settings will really change depending on your coffee. So even from one machine to another, it might be different. Don't expect to replicate my setting exactly, but rather follow the method to find your own. Consider my values as a great starting point. Now that we've laid the groundwork, let's get into the good stuff. First of all, a little tip that may seem obvious but can make a pretty big difference: set the temperature to the maximum on your Magnifica S. For that, you will have to turn off the machine, press the espresso 1 cup for around 5 seconds, the light will flash and then you will have 4 icons. And you guessed it, first icon will mean low temperature, the fourth icon will mean the highest temperature. So we will go here for the highest temperature. Before we go any further, I have a message for you. If you want to go deeper into the topic, I have prepared a complete guide on adjusting the bean to cup machines. And you can download it for free. It will guide you step by step to adjust your machine, what to do when you buy new beans. No complicated terms, it's simple, fast and easy to use. And the link to download it is in the description below. Okay, back to our settings. On the Magnifica S, we can adjust 3 main settings: the grind size, the coffee dose, and the water quantity, the cup volume. Let's start with the grind. This is really the key here for a good espresso. The adjustment is made here with the dial, graduated from 1 to 7. The smaller the number, the finer the grind, and contrary to what you might think, too coarse a grind is usually the #1 problem. That's what will give you a really thin coffee without crema. For a good espresso with the Magnifica S, I usually recommend to be between 2 and 3. But be careful, this setting should only be changed while the grinder is running. Otherwise, there is a risk damaging your machine. Now let's move to the coffee dose. This setting determines how much ground coffee is used for each cup. On the Magnifica S, we can choose that using the dial here. And you guessed it, the more coffee, the stronger the brew. Since the main problem with bean-to-cup machine usually is under-extracted coffee, I recommend starting at maximum or near maximum intensity. That will give us between 11 to 13 grams of coffee for a double espresso. This will change depending on the type of coffee you use. So single or double espresso. With the Magnifica S, I recommend starting with a double espresso. Otherwise, the coffee dose is too low. So I've taken a few measurements here, and we often end up between 8 to 9 grams for a single espresso, where we are between 12 to 13 for a double. So here, for a true espresso, always use the maximum intensity and double espresso. Of course, it's still going to be a bit light compared to a traditional espresso, but it's the maximum this machine can do, and it will still give us pretty good results. If you really want to go further, there are a few more technical adjustments that you can make. Here, a precision scale becomes really useful. Precisely measuring the dose allows us to perfectly adjust our coffee and water ratio. In general, we talk about a ratio of 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 for espresso. With a bean-to-cup machine, it could be interesting to raise that a little bit, more like 1 to 3, 1 to 3.5. But what does that mean? To give you a concrete example, if your machine uses 10 grams of coffee, you will aim to get between 30 to 40 grams in your cup. The idea here is to have a good base that you can then adjust based on your preferences. In factory settings, the machine gives us around 40 milliliters, which already gives us a pretty good starting point. For water volume, I recommend testing between 30 and 45 grams. How to know if it's too much? If your coffee feels too diluted after the extraction, you probably used too much water. And on the other hand, of course, if it's too strong, too acidic, it could mean that you didn't use enough water. To program your volume, you will press and hold the espresso button during the extraction. The button will blink, then release and press again when you have the desired amount. With a scale, it's of course even more precise. Here I will aim for a ratio of 1 to 3. So for us, with the 12 grams, we will aim for 36 to 40 grams in the cup. Now let's move on to the method for finding the perfect grinder settings. If your coffee flows too fast or lacks strength and crema, and that's the most common problem, you need to adjust your grinder and grind finer. Finer coffee creates more resistance to the water, resulting in a more complete extraction. What I will tell you now is not mandatory, but it helps to readjust your grinder if you can get a slow enough flow. A warning here, this step will use quite a bit of coffee, but it could be necessary to properly readjust the burr. If you are already on a fine setting, 1, 2 or 3, and your coffee is dripping slowly, there is good crema, then there is no need to continue. But if you're already at that limit, and if your coffee is too light without crema, I recommend doing that. Here is the method. Start from the grinder position 5 or 6 and adjust one notch at a time, and only of course when the grinder is running. After each adjustment, you will brew 3 espresso, so the new setting is fully taken into account. Observe, you can test also the third coffee and see where you are. For example, if you are in a position 5, you will go to the position 4.5, then you launch 3 espresso. After that, start a new espresso, go to the position 4, launch 3 more espresso here, and continue in the same way. Usually, position 3 will be our median point for testing, but I will show you here all in detail. So what do we have here? With a position of 5 or 6, it's too coarse, we have a very fast flow, it's light, we have little crema. On a position 3, we have a slower flow, a darker color, a much better crema. On a position 2.5, it's even finer. We have a steady flow, but as you can see, it's almost dripping at the end. So for me, it's almost too fine. I would go up half a notch to position 3. The extraction time here is directly linked to the grind fineness. If the grind is too fine, the water will have trouble passing through, and the extraction will take too long or get blocked. It's not going to be good. If it's too coarse, it will flow too fast. With a bean to cup machine, we aim for an extraction between 15 to 25 seconds if we're lucky, and that's already pretty good. Here is what I have. At the end, I got a 28-second extraction, a bit of dripping, so that means I think the grind is a little bit too fine. I will go up to 3, and I was at 2.5. So my final settings here will be grinder at 3, intensity at maximum, double espresso drink, temperature at maximum, and a cup volume between 36 to 40 grams. And don't forget, if you want to know more or how to adjust when you change coffee, you can download the guide that's in the description. Before wrapping up, here are the most common mistakes I see with the Magnifica S. First, using too coarse a grind. It's the #1 cause of a tasteless coffee. 2, not adjusting the temperature. 3, not measuring or weighing coffee. It's hard to improve what you don't really measure. Not cleaning the brew group regularly. Ignoring descaling, the lime scale buildup can affect temperature and pressure. And of course, be careful about the coffee you put in your machine. In the end, it's the most important thing. There you go, you now know how to properly adjust your Delonghi Magnifica S, I hope, to get a real espresso. So remember these key points: a finer grind, position 1 to 3, maximum dose and double espresso, a control volume between 30 to 45 grams for a good ratio. And let me know in the comments if those settings improved your daily coffee. I'm really curious to hear your experiences. I'm also currently preparing a guide on how to use the steam wand here for make the perfect cappuccino. If you don't want to miss it, you could subscribe. In the meantime, if you liked that video, I recommend watching this one here. I'm pretty sure you would find it interesting. And as always, I wish you an excellent day, a great espresso. I'll see you soon. Ciao.